All right, this week, Menahot. So Menahot has a lot of Agadata. We finished Zvachim, it didn't have very many. So moving on to Menahot. And the Yaakov was much longer there, so hopefully spend more time in Menahot, B'ezrat Hashem. And this week, it's actually Menahot Chavtet. It's a sugya that's familiar to me because it's where all the stuff about Sofer Stam come up, about Tzitzit and Tefillin and Mezuzah. So there's a series of almost 10 dapim talking about all the halachot of those things. And kind of at the outset of that is the famous story of Moshe Rabbeinu visiting Rabbi Akiva in the classroom, and etc. So in the lead up to that whole story, there's a midrash in the beginning of Menachot that I'd like to discuss, talking about where Moshe Rabbeinu did not know how to accomplish a mitzvah that God had commanded him, to the point where God had to show him and kind of hold his hand and micromanage how he was supposed to fulfill it. And we'll see other midrashim that show that this is actually just one of several examples of that. You'd think Moshe Rabbeinu would be able to do almost anything, but we actually see that there are several examples where, not that he forgot the halacha, there's other examples of that. He got angry and forgot the halacha. There's famous midrashim in that, but that he needed to be shown how to do technically what needed to be done, because it was a complex area of halacha.
Like the menorah.
Sorry?
Like the menorah.
Baruch shekivanta, like the menorah. Very good. That's exactly what the springboard is.
Oh,
very
okay.
nice. No, exactly. Like the menorah, exactly.
Okay.
So we'll see other examples too, and then we'll see different midrashim that seem to maybe contradict each other, and how the Tosfot and Marsha try to address that, and then at the end tie it into some, we'll call it ashkafa, or theology, into how God governs the world. So, Menachot al Chavtet Amud Aleph. Tanya Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Aron shel Esh v'shulchan shel Esh u'menorah shel Esh yardu min hashamayim. V'ra'a Moshe v'asa kamotam, shneimar u'reh v'aseh ketavnitam asher ata mar'eh bahar. So when the Torah tells us about the command to create various utensils in the Mishkan, so it says asher ata mar'eh bahar. So God's talking to Moshe, saying, like you see, right? You see here on the mountain. So what's he talking about? So there was these, they were made of fire, and God showed Moshe these fire examples of the kelim that were supposed to be in the Mishkan. Well, what are you talking about? So what's the difference? It says the Mishkan is also, there's asher harita bahar. So you're telling me is that there's specific utensils, the whole Mishkan is built that way. The difference is it kimishpato or kitav nitam? Kitav nitam means they're forms.
In shape, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So implying that Moshe saw the actual shape. Kimishpato means the way you see the Mishkan, in the sense that you're learning about the Mishkan on a high level, and that you should do it in a similar way. But not that there was an actual Mishkan that appeared before Moshe. Rabbi Chil bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gavriel Chagor kemin psikaya haya veherah lo leMoshe maaseh menorah. Tichtiv zeh maaseh menorah. Okay, so the angel Gavriel appeared, kind of girded with a belt, and showed Moshe Rabbeinu the menorah. And the drasha here is slightly different. It says v'zeh maaseh menorah. The menorah is introduced with the word v'zeh, meaning in this. So not just this, the concept of menorah, but a very specific this, a menorah that Moshe could see. Tam d'ber Rabbi Shmuel shlosha dvarim hayu kashin lo leMoshe ad she'ara lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'etzba'o ve'elu hen menorah ve'rosh chodesh u'shchatzim. Okay, so there are three examples of things that were kashin lo leMoshe. Just the fact that you have that phrase in of itself, right, is quite bold.
There are things that are difficult for him. He wasn't necessarily born knowing Shas back and forth. I think there are midrashim that when he was born, he was doing some remarkable things, but that's fine.
Now that you say that, I didn't put it together, but right after this is the story of Moshe in Rabbi Akiva's classroom.
And it's Menahot, I know.
Yeah, on this daf.
Oh, it is that? Is that this stuff?
And I just realized the connection could be your point, that Moshe didn't know Shas back. In other words, the connecting theme is Moshe just didn't know all of Torah.
He was the greatest human, but he was a human.
That's perfect. A wild story also.
Yeah.
Next week?
Zarchin and Rabbi Khan's book.
Yeah, Rabbi Khan's book, exactly. Yeah.
That's the title of the book.
I have to get that back to you.
No. Oh, that wasn't like a subtle reminder.
It was an explicit reminder.
You're welcome to keep it as long as you like. I don't mind.
Good point. No, but that's a good point. The connecting theme of Kashin lo Moshe, right? Moshe didn't understand. Okay, and what are these examples? Menorah, Rosh Chodesh, U'shchatzim. Okay, Menorah dichtiv v'zeh maaseh menorah, like we just learned. Rosh Chodesh dichtiv v'chodesh hazeh lachem. Rosh Chodeshim, right? Also, that's with the word zeh. U'shchatzim dichtiv v'zeh lachem atameh. Right, and these are the things that are tameh to you. There's some who also add hilchot shchita because it also has the word v'zeh. Right, the connecting theme behind all these, we'll get more into the detail about why these things in particular, but the fact that it says zeh, and the fact that these are halachot that are ostensibly complicated, right? In other words, how you construct this very complex menorah with all the different pieces and how they're supposed to fit together. Rosh Chodesh, of course, the astronomical calculations is something that's very complex. And Tuma when it comes to kashrut, also there's a lot of minutia and shechita as well. And so, again, we have the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu was difficult for him. There's a parallel version of this midrash that's brought in various other midrashic works, Yoshim Rabbah, Bamidbar Rabbah, Psikta Dufkana, and others, that is the same but different. Rabbi Shua D'Sichnim B'Shem Rabbi Levi Amar, At Motzeh B'Shah She'amar Kadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe, Aseh li Mishkan, Haya lo la'amid arba'a kundasin v'limtoach ha-mishkan alehem, והראהו Mishkan. So when God said to Moshe, make me a Mishkan, Moshe should have taken 4 poles, planted them into the ground, and spread something over them, and said, here's a Mishkan, right? God did not do that. God brought him up high and showed him red, green, black, and white fire. And God said, make me a Mishkan like these. Moshe says, I don't have fire of these colors. And God says, no, use these to kind of learn from the form of these, and then, make what's milamala and make it milamata. But in this tavnit, so it's a mashal to a king who comes before his son, and he's dressed nicely in pearls, and says to him, make me something like what I'm wearing now. Can I make something like that? Here we have this idea of this parallel, which is Chodesh HaGeulah. It's big in Chassidus, right? What's up high is also, there's a parallel between what's milamala and what's milamata. Right, and it takes it further. Atzei shitim ha'amed and ktiv kan ela omdim. Right, the commandment is to use atzei shitim omdim, which is standing instead of ha'amed, which is a command to stand up. Atzei shitim, it means those that are standing. Kenutunim be'isteratia shel mala. So it means like the ones that hold up the heavens. Because the idea was that the heavens are held up by these poles. V'ima toseh lazeh shel mala lamata ni meniach. If you make me a Mishkan like the one that's up above, I will leave my heavenly court, I will come down and limit my Shekhinah into your Mishkan. So above you have these angels that stand, so you should make these wooden poles that stand. Just like above you have the stars, so too below you have the stars. This teaches us that the little hooks of gold, they looked like stars, I guess from a distance. Sparkling. And they sparkled, right? And they twinkled. So you have here this midrash taking it one step further and saying, it's not just that, okay, Moshe, the emphasis is less on the fact that it was difficult for Moshe in the sense that he needed, like a divine teacher to come show him exactly how to do these things, so they're complex. But the idea behind the thrust of what's going on here is different. The reason why God showed Moshe how to make the menorah and these things is, again, not because Moshe didn't know how to do it, but in order to emphasize to him that it's mala af lamata. The reasoning behind it, to teach you what you're doing here by making this Mishkan. I'm showing you a heavenly version of it to emphasize that this is God. This is bringing the Shekhinah down into the world, right? And that was the message behind Vizeh Maseh Menorah, right? That you're bringing God's presence down into the world. So again, it's the same teaching, but it's with a different kind of perhaps message that's behind it. What's interesting is that there's other examples, right? We saw that the Gemara in Menahot, it brought a menorah, Rosh Chodesh, and Shratzim, and possibly Shechita, as the examples where Moshe was too difficult for him. If we look in the Gemara in Chulin, it says as follows, on Daf Mem Ben Amar Aleph, Tetanat be Rabbi Shmuel, Zot Chaya Asher Tochlu. These are the animals you can eat. Melamed shetafas HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol min v'min, v'ar'alo l'Moshe, v'amar lo zot achol v'zot lo techol. So, here the language is even stronger. It says, God grabbed each species of animal and showed each one to Moshe and said, this is kosher, this is treif, this is kosher, this is treif. Again, similar to shrotzim, but A, it's all animals, it seems, or at least the zot hachaya asher tochlu. And B, it's a bit of a stronger kind of language, that he showed every single animal. There's another example entirely brought in the Tanchuma and in the Yerushalmi. It says, "Kamin matbea shel ish hotzia kadosh baruch hu mitachat kisei hakavod." Exactly. Very good. V'arahu leMoshe v'amarlu ze yitnu. Kazeh yitnu. What does it mean, ze yitnu kol over pekudim? Something like this, meaning, again, ze is the key here, that God showed Moshe a fiery shekel that he took out from under the kisei hakavod. Again, there's clearly something going on here. But this is an example that isn't brought in the Gemara and Menahot. So there's two ways to think about that, right? One way is to say that it's possible that you have different midrashim that are just not, they don't even conflict here. They just aren't necessarily, they complement each other. You have some examples in Menachot, and then you have this Tanchuma, which has another example. It doesn't mean, it could just be different traditions or, there's no real problem. But Tosfot in his commentary on Menachot, right, Tosfot views this through a halachic lens of you have kind of two sources that don't agree with each other. You need to figure out what's different between them. So he says, "V'im tomar v'rechshov nami ayid elu trefot damar v'zot hachaya asher tochlu v'lamet shtafos hakadosh baruch hu kol min v'min v'aralo leMoshe v'amar lo zot achol v'zot lo techol." So what about the example in Chulin of all the animals or all the chayot? V'yesh lomar de lo chashiv ela hach tichtiv zeh. Okay, so by it says zot instead of ze. So Tosfot tries to argue it's in the feminine instead of the masculine, so it's different. V'yesh litmoa v'ad lo chashiv machatzit hashekel dichtiv ze yitnu. Okay, but then how do you explain the example of the machatzit hashekel? V'amrinan kimin matbeat shel ish harahu leMoshe v'yesh lomar de lo shayach hatam nittkasha ela mishum de lo havayada b'shum inyan im lo haya mar'ehu. So I don't fully understand what Tosfot's saying here, but he's saying the reason why the Gemara in Menachot didn't bring the Machzit HaShekel is because the Gemara in Menachot is saying something that Moshe had a hard time with. But
he understood the concept. He understood the concept of calculating the new one, but he needed help. But he never heard of this shekel before.
Exactly.
I guess they didn't have it in Mitzrayim or something.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So it's completely out of the realm of his,
right. He understood.
Didn't deal with money.
Right.
This is before he became a Jew, right?
Advisor.
Before, right? This is before Har Sinai. Before he was officially. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting.
So it's an interesting idea of Tosas, right? Where he says like Shratz and Moshe knew what a sheretz was, but he didn't know how to tell the different species apart in terms of Tumah and Tara. He knew that you had calculations from the moon, but he didn't know how to. So, versus the Machzir Shekel, it's a new concept entirely. Marasha brings a different answer, which to me at least is a bit more satisfying, both because of the question he raises and then the answer he gives. Hanira bezeh, debechol makom shenizkar kfar besamuch le'el minei me'oto davar, sheba sipur acharav, shapir yipol milat v'zeh, besipur sheba acharav. The Marsha's basic argument is that the examples where it says v'zeh is, it makes sense to have the word zeh when it's coming after some context that comes before, right? In other words, you have some explanation or some story or something, and then you say v'zeh da 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 da. So v'zeh refers to what just came before, and that makes sense grammatically. So Marsha brings a bunch of examples. I only quoted a bit of it, right? By Noach, for example, God says, how are you going to make the teva? Right? God opens and says, so God says, make an ark, and this is how you should make the ark. So in that example, shapir yipol acharav v'zeh asher taseh. So the word v'zeh there functions in a way that makes sense. This is how you should do it. It's talking about the Kohanim and how you should be Mekadesh them. After it talks about the whole idea of the Kuna, etc., etc. Etc. He brings a whole bunch of examples and shows that each of them v'zeh is coming to explain after some introduction was given. שלא נזכר כלום לאל מיני בחידוש החודש, לא ייפול בתחילת העניין. It's like out of nowhere, basically. That's what he's saying. Sorry?
It's like out of nowhere, is what he's saying, basically.
Right.
There's nothing to refer back to. Therefore, it's difficult.
Exactly. Right? You think about it. It says, what's the...
There's no context.
Moshe's
Right.
talking to Paro about the Makat Bechorot,
Right.
and then God says, "V'dibesh Moshe le'emor, chodesh zeh lechem rosh chodeshim," right? So it doesn't come with some context. So there's no reason to say hazeh in that case. V'chen legabe v'zeh lachem atameh b'sheretz, v'chen legabe v'zeh maaseh menorah. And so Maharsha argues that that's the more grammatical or linguistic kind of thrust behind why the Gemara ignores the myriad of other examples that Maharsha brings and just uses those three to say kashin lo Moshe. וכן לדעת היש אומרים גבי וזה אשר תעשה על המזבח שלא הוזכר כלל לאל מיני עניין קורבנות התמידין. He also says that for the people who say shechita, it's also perhaps an idea. So, unlike Tosfot who says, okay, the shekel, it's because Moshe, yeah.
But he doesn't add a shekel here. Marsha.
That's correct.
And
Because he's only addressing...
Oh, he's on Menahot, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't bring it in.
Yeah.
Gemara didn't bring it in.
Yeah, Tosfot was the one who brought the shekel. But Maharsha, I guess we'd have to see Zayitnu. That does come after the context.
Yeah.
So that would be a kasha on him. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, you should give this the coin that I just talked about. Very good. I don't know how you'd answer that.
Doesn't hold by the Yerushalmi.
Yeah, right. Maharsha could just say, and that's what I was alluding to before. Tosfos is the one who feels this need to come and say, I need to fit in this case of the shekel into Menachot. It could be Menachot had a different way of understanding the Zeh.
Yeah.
And you don't have to...
Just the other week, they started a cycle of the Daf Yomi Yerushalmi, which I'm not learning. But I was listening to a shir about someone who was giving like just a general Yerushalmi, and he's saying that like different Rishonim have different approaches about what to do with the Yerushalmi. So it could be that some are more inclined to make it fit together into like everything Yerushalmi says we have, and some are more inclined to say no, like the Bavli is what that's what matters. And the Yerushalmi says it's like a different. So maybe that could be that's why he didn't bring it up.
Interesting. In the realm of Medrash in particular, it's interesting because I think generally in the halachic sphere, it's the Bavli is considered authoritative, but in Medrash, it's really like the Torah Eretz Yisrael is more.
Like Medrash Rabbah is also part of that.
Medrash Rabbah is all Torah Eretz Yisrael, and it's where like a lot of the Midrashim came from and flourished. But I don't know.
Land.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I want to talk about two other ideas here, and then close with kind of a more ashkafic concept. So, one of the cases that was brought in the Gemara in Menahot was Rosh Chodesh. So there's an interesting question brought in the Mechilta de Bishma. So let's read the whole thing. Chodesh hazeh lachem, Rabbi Yishmael omer Moshe הראה את החודש לישראל ואמר להם כזה היו רואים וקובעים את החודש לדורות. רבי עקיבא אומר זה אחד משלושה דברים שנתקשה בהם משה והראהו המקום את כולם באצבע. Rabbi Akiva here is the same as the Gemara in Menachot. כרת בדבר אתה אומר וזה לכם הטמא וזה למעשה המנורה. וישומעים אף בשחיטה נתקשה משה שנאמר וזה דבר שתעשה. רבי שמעון בן יוחאי אומר, and this is the new idea, והלא כל הדברים שנדבר עם משה לא נדבר אלא ביום. So didn't Moshe receive all of his prophecy only during the day? Or his tzivuim from God? אבל החודש הזה ראו בלילה. Right? But the way you have to see, the Chodesh Hazeh had to have been at night. So, Ketzad, how's that possible? היה מדבר עמו ביום והראהו החודש בלילה. So, he proposes that God said the command of a Chodesh Hazeh during the day, but then the Hazeh is kind of a delayed finger pointing for later at night. There's, I guess, a typo here. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Omer, נדבר עמו ביום עם חשיכה והראהו החודש בחשיכה. And he says, no, God was talking to him like right as the sun was setting, and then he was able to kind of get a glimpse of the moon, and it was this prolonged thing. So he bridges it over. In Rashi here, I did bring examples. Where do you get this idea that God only spoke to Moshe during the day? What's the concept behind that? So Rashi brings some examples. This is just kind of, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai almost takes it as a given. He doesn't bring examples. Rashi feels the need to, when he quotes this Mechilta, to give sources, but Shimon Bar Yochai doesn't, at least in the Mechilta, he doesn't bring examples of why, but I guess there's this assumption that the prophecy only came during the day. So Ella samuch ushkiat hachama ne'amar lo parasha zu v'yarahu im chashecha, and Rashi then gives the explanation not like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai but like Rabbi Elazar. So just kind of an interesting idea there about the Chodesh Zelachem. I want to look now at the Psikta Rabati in Perek Tet Zayin, which takes this example, but within a broader and more, like I was saying before, kind of theological context.
It's a midrash?
Yes, it's a midrash. Psikta Rabati is a midrash. Yep. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Shlosha dvarim shama Moshe mipi hagvura, v'nivhav v'nirta la'achorav. So Moshe heard three things from God, and it shook him and he shook backwards, as it were. Number one, B'shah she'amar v'asu li mikdash, amar Moshe lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel olam, k'tiv hinei hashamayim u'shmei hashamayim lo yichalkelucha, v'ata omer asu li mikdash. You're God, right? You fill everything. You are utterly transcendent. You're telling us to make you a mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. How is that possible? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe, Moshe lo כשאתה סבור, אלא 20 קרשים בצפון ו20 קרשים בדרום, ו8 במערב, ואני יורד ומצמצם שכינתי ביניהם למטה, שנאמר, ונועדתי לך שם, ונקדש בכבודי. That God says, essentially, אין הכי נמי. That yes, there is this concept of הנה השמיים ושמי השמיים לא יחלקלוך, but somehow I can be mitzamtzem my shechina.
Not like you think. It should be this dimension. That makes...
Isn't it so? It's charif. It's like you're asking this question. How does the creator of the universe? It's like no. There's 20 boards this way, 8 boards that way.
No,
it's like, and that's it. I fit there, and he's unapologetically embracing the contradiction to Moshe and saying, no, don't worry about it. I can somehow live that. I can be both.
Leave that to me.
Right.
Leave that to me. Exactly. Number 2, so when Bnei Yisrael sinned at Chet HaEgel, so then the mitzvah was given, each person should give ish kofar nafsho, kind of as an atonement for their soul. Amar Moshe, Ribon Olamim, mi yachol yiten pidyon nafsho? Ach lo pado yifte ish lo yiten lelokim priyo v'yikar pidyon nafsham. How much I can give money and then that redeems my soul? What is this Catholicism? Sorry. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lo kashem she'ata savur. No, you're off base again. Ela ze yitnu, kaze yitnu. So here we have an explanation for what we saw in the Yerushalmi that's motivating it. Aside from just, this could help you with your question why the Maharsha isn't bothered by
the shekel here.
The shekel here. Because the kazeh here is different. It's true that the zeh here comes after a context. So the Maharsha's explanation of the zeh without the context teaches me Nittkasha Moshe, but here there's a different zeh for this particular midrash, which is that it's zeh yitnu, meaning don't think that you have to explain that he showed him the half shekel, because you can't understand it to mean that literally you can give an atonement for your soul with money. So the zeh here is playing a different function, kazeh yitnu, perhaps.
Okay.
אמר רבי מאיר כמין מטבע של אש, הוציא הקדוש ברוך הוא מתחת כיסא הכבוד והראה למשה ואמר לו זה ייתנו כזה ייתנו. That's Rabbi Meir here is the same as we saw in the Yerushalmi. And then the third example, ובשעה שאמר ריח ניחוחי תשמרו להקריב לי במועדו, in the קורבן תמיד, אמר משה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, ריבון העולמים, אם אני מכניס כל חיות שבעולם, יש בהם כדי העלייה אחת, או כל העצים שבעולם, יש בהם כדי עברה אחת. דכתיב ולבנון אין די בער, So I think actually this third example is more similar to the first one.
Right, it's not enough. Like no matter what.
Yeah, what do you want a korban for? You're God. I could bring all the animals in the world. It wouldn't be. It would be infinitely not close enough to what you need. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe lo kashem she'ata savur elak. And similar to the first one. Kvasim b'nei shana shnayim layom lo shnayim b'vat achat ela echad b'boker v'takevas hasheni taseh ben arba'im. Don't worry about it. Embrace that is how I work. And Rav Huna b'shem Rav, this is the end of the Psikta Rabati. Rav Huna b'shem Rav Amar, there's a pasuk in Yov, Shaddai lo mitzanucha sagi koach. I have not found you, God, in your full power, in your overabundance of power. What does that mean? Lo matzinu koach gvurato shel kadosh baruch hu, We have not seen the full power of God because Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'tarchut al Yisrael. That God did not come with a burden onto us. וכיוון ששמע משה כך, and when Moshe heard this, התחיל משבח בישראל ואומר להם, אשרי העם שכך לו, אשרי העם שהשם אלוקיו. The praiseworthy is a nation that has a God like this. What does it mean? Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'tarchut al Yisrael. What does that mean?
With demands, with to make the like a tircha.
Yeah.
Tircha is like a strenuous strain. So Hashem's not coming to overload us.
Overload. That's good. Yeah. So in this context, how would we perhaps understand that? So there's this commentary. I don't know who this is, but the Gura'az is a commentary on the Psikta Rabati. So on the right side there, if you see where it says Lo Matzinu Koach, towards the bottom of his commentary on the right side. Yeah. So he says, B'midrash Rabbah, Parshat Truma, Ita Lo Matzinu Koach V'orto Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Im Briotav. So we found this idea, he actually quotes it from a different medrash. We have not found the Koach of Hashem in regards to his creations. She'en HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'tarchut im briotav. God doesn't come with a burden or to burden his creations. Lo ba'al ha'adam ela kefi kocho.
He's not going to give us a task we can't complete. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah, that's one way to understand it. But he interprets it, I think, a little bit differently. So he says, "Rotzeh lomar shelo yitriach habriot lefi geuto v'koach godlo, ki im lefi yicholto shel adam." וכן פירש רש"י באיוב ודדדה. ואין בירושלמי פרק הוראה דשם איתה לא מצינו כוח גבורתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, ולפי עניינו שם פירושו שאין אנו יכולים להשיג אותו. ולכך אין רשות להוסיף בשבחו של הקדוש ברוך הוא יותר ממטבע שטבעו חכמים. In other words, he's saying, when it says God didn't want to come to be matriach b'nei Yisrael, what it essentially means is, when Moshe is asking these questions of Yinei Shemaim, Shemei Shemaim, Lo Yichlak Elucha, and how could we offer korbanot to you? We have no way to comprehend God in His true essence. That aspect of God, that totally transcendent, there's no way for us to relate to it. We're too mortal, we're too finite. So when it says God has mitzamtzem Himself into the Mishkan, it's because I think Lo ba b'tarchut al Yisrael is maybe kind of a way of saying that we wouldn't be able to handle that full understanding of God. God can't force us to relate to Him on that level because there is that gap that can't be bridged. So instead, God is mitzamtzem Himself in a way that we can relate to Him. So the korbanot are, of course, not something that really satisfies God, but it's the only way that we can come a little bit closer to Him because there is this chasm that cannot be bridged.
To the point that it's usher to add more ways of trying to grasp more God other than the way Chachamim said. Right,
exactly. And that's the negative theology of the Rambam, right? He says the only way to really describe God is He is not this, He is not that, He's in the Mor Nevuchim. Because the second you say, Ha'el Gadol Gibor V'Norai L'Elyon,
Gemara in Brachos.
Yeah.
I think it was Rabbi, I don't remember who it was, that there's two stories of Sheikh Tzibor. One of them he went on and on, and then he's like, why'd you stop? He kept going, because you can't ever fully praise God. No matter what you say, there's never going to be enough to say.
Right.
So it's even in Nishmas Kol Chai. At one point it says,
yeah, exactly.
And then we go.
And then it continues and does it, right?
Right, but it's true, 100%.
Right. It's exactly. It's like his language here too. It's like matbea shetavao chachamim. So it's the only way we even have permission to say Ha'el Gadol Gibor V'Norai is because the rabbi somehow had the authority to tell us that that's somehow reasonable. Right. But beyond that, right? It's a futile effort, and so that's kind of the idea here, where Moshe Rabbeinu is asking the fundamental question, right? Meaning, what's hidden behind this Psikta Rabati is what Moshe is trying to say, and this connects to the theme that we were having before, right? Where we said in the beginning that you had Menahot and the Shiashirim, where you have one is Moshe's having a hard time with the technicalities of the building the menorah or Rosh Chodesh. But I think this maybe is more aligned with the version in Shir Hashirim where it's about this idea of how do I bridge the Mala and the Mata? Right? How do I take the world of God, as it were, and then bring it down into the world of of materialistic whatever it is.
Make the transcendent imminent.
Make the transcendent imminent. Exactly. Biduk. That's exactly it. And and the answer in Judaism, or at least in the mindset of Chazal, is it's a contradiction, and somehow you have to just embrace it. That God is able to do what you're told. Lo k'moshe ata savur, right? Rather, bring the sheep and keep your mouth. No, but that somehow God is able to inhabit both this totally incomprehensible sphere and also dwell in the Mishkan and care about our korbanot, and we should be zocha, not to be nittkasha like Moshe Rabbeinu, but to somehow understand how to bring mala to mata, and you got some.
Very nice.